Hey gang, it's your old buddy Platt, and today we're going to review a Brewmaster 1 gallon homebrew kit. So let's go. Well, as most of you are aware, I love homebrew kits. I'm always looking for different homebrew kits, especially on these smaller, more 1 gallon, 2 gallon into the equation. And I was recently on Amazon and found this Brewmaster 1 gallon, I believe it's an American ale, brew kit. Brewmaster does do 5 gallon kits also, but like I said, I'm kind of looking more on the smaller end. Just makes it easier to brew. Brewing 5 gallon and bigger batches, that's a lot of beer, even though I am thirsty. Anyway, found this kit, thought we'd give it a try. I've already got, they do sell the complete kit that comes with the fermenter and everything, but all I need is the refill. I got plenty of 1 gallon fermenters. So let's stick through this, see what we get with our kit. One thing, when I first opened the kit, I did like, it actually came with a full set of instructions. A couple of the kits we've tried lately don't have it, or they refer to you online, but it's nice just to have a physical copy, something I can look at. Also, I like they got the stats, projected stats of what you're going to have as beer. They project this is an American ale, they project we're going to come out at 9 SRM, 50 IBUs, and about 4.5% alcohol by volume. So we got that. We've got our packets of our different hops that we're going to use throughout the process, and it's already pre-portioned. All you have to do is tear them open, toss them in, makes it real easy. We have the carbonation drops, 1 drop for each beer, makes it nice and simple. Our yeast, they use a Safe Ale, US-05, pretty much a nice standard yeast. We have 18 bottle caps. You won't need that many, but we have bottle caps included with that. We have a grain bag, which we'll be using shortly. And then we have our specialty grain. I believe this is a 50 Levabon crystal malt. 4 ounces of that. And then we have 1.5 pounds of our dried malt extract. It says it's light, and we're making American ale, so that makes sense. So now that we've got went through the kit, got everything, let's make American ale with Brewmaster Brew Kit. Okay, so the first step with the Brewmaster Homebrew Kit is we're going to take 1.5 gallons of water and we're going to turn our stove on to medium, and we're going to heat up the water. Now, where Brewmaster differs from a lot of these other kits, you might remember the couple of partial mashes we did with Mr. Beer, and I believe also Crafter Brew was another one. What we did with those is we would heat the water first up to 155, get a stable temperature, and then add in the grains. What Brewmaster is asking us to do is we're going to start heating the water, and then we're going to add our specialty grains in. We're going to let that sit roughly 15 minutes or so. They kind of project it's going to take 15 minutes for this water to hit 170 degrees. And then at 170 degrees, or 15 minutes, whatever comes first, then we'll pull it out. The reason 170 is important is that over 170, the heat starts taking out some of the tannins or leaching out the husk of the grain, and it kind of can give an off taste. But this is where this kit differs a lot. Most standard partial mash recipes, and even if you're doing a full mash, a lot of times that 155 is the magic temperature. But in here, I guess they're projecting that just the time it takes to get through that range up to 170, which is kind of in a danger zone, that you'll have enough time to get out what the sugars and everything from the grain. So we've got it heated up, and we're just going to dip this in, and we're going to let this sit. We're going to monitor our temperature with our thermometer. So let's do our partial mash, and then we'll come back and set up the next step, which is to bring it to a boil and then add our malt extract. Alrighty, so we let our grain steep for roughly 15 minutes, a little over 15 minutes, and we've gotten our water up to temperature. Now we've removed the grains, and one of the things you want to do when you remove the grains is you don't want to squeeze that bag or whatever, just let it drain, because as the bird knows, if you squeeze the bag, it'll get some of the tannins out of the husk, so you don't want to do that. So now we're going to bring this to a boil. And when we hit a boil, we're going to turn off the heat and then add our bag of malt extract. After we get it thoroughly stirred in, then you want to bring this back up to a boil. Now I want to warn you about something. Between the time you stir your malt extract in and by the time you hit a boil, you're going to hit something called a hot break. And you'll find that you'll get a lot of foam. Your wort, as we'll call it, is going to foam up on you. You want to be there, you want to be careful, you want to keep stirring. You want to avoid what's called a boil over, which everything comes out over the top. I've had it done before. It's a mess. You want to avoid that. One thing I could suggest to you is get a big pot to brew in. If you're doing, we got 1.5 gallons here. I wouldn't do that in a 2-gallon pot. Here, I think this is 4 that I'm working with. I've got significant headroom to where I'm not quite as worried about a boil over. So just something to know. So let me get this up to a boil. I'll add my malt extract, and then I'll come back and we'll be where we be to our second boil, and then that's when we start adding the hops, and I'll get into hop addition at that point. So let me finish this up. Alrighty, so we hit a boil, we added our malt extract, we brought it back up to a boil, and now we're getting ready to start our 1 hour long boil. It's kind of traditional in home brewing. What we have right now, our wort, is just a sugary solution. We want to now add some balance to that, and we do that by using hops. It provides some bitterness, which again balances sweetness, a little flavor, a little aroma to the beer. And depending on when in the boil, the 1 hour boil, that we add the hops, tells us how much, again, bitterness, flavor, aroma we get out of that. When the boil starts, we're going to add our bittering hop, which is 1/4 ounce of Magnum hops. So let me, dang it. We're just going to sprinkle those in. And you'll notice when you add the hops, you're going to get, again, a little boil effect. So you might want to give her a stir to avoid a boil over. Alright? And so we're going to let this boil for the next 55 minutes till we get to 5 minutes left in the boil, and then we'll add our flavoring hops, and then right at flame out at the end of the boil, we'll add our aroma hops. So let me finish our boil. Then what I want to do is in the boil, we're going to cool the liquids as fast as possible, get it down to around 70, 75-ish degrees, put it in our fermenter and add the yeast. So let me get this boil done, we'll get into the fermenter, and then I'll come back to wrap up and talk about the fermentation process and the bottling process. Alright, so we finished our boil, then we cooled off our wort down to proper, roughly room temperature. And now we're getting ready to add the yeast. And this is where I kind of want to stop real quick, just because the instructions, they give you a pack here, this Saf Ale USO5. This pack is roughly for about a 5-gallon batch. In the instructions, it should just use half the pack. I think in other videos where I've done a 1-gallon fermentation, wherever, I'll say more like 1/4 of a pack, or whatever. It's up to you. Follow instructions. It won't make much difference, but the reason I kind of wanted to get to this point is I've had several questions. If you threw the whole pack in there, and some people, I've gotten questions about throwing a whole pack or enough yeast for 5 gallons into a 1-gallon deal. What ends up happening is the yeast itself kind of lets the other yeast know, hey, there's only X amount of sugar, or we're competing for the sugars, and they kind of, it sends a signal to the others. If there's too many yeast in there, it kind of throws the yeast off and adds a bit of a funkiness to it. Too much yeast in something, and you will notice the yeast taste. So just a little precaution on that. Go ahead and use half the pack. Part of the reason why they suggest half the pack is that if within, they say 48 hours, normally within 24 hours, you're going to know if the fermentation's going. But they say give at least 48 hours, and if after 48 hours fermentation does not take off, they suggest then that you use the rest of the pack to see if it gets back up and going. That again, that's up your call. But we're going to add our yeast, and then we're going to let this ferment for roughly 2 weeks. Unlike some other beer kits, what have you, they don't suggest a secondary fermentation. They just believe in leaving this here for about 2 weeks, then going ahead and bottling using the carb tabs they have in the kit. And then once you're done bottling, let it sit at room temperature for roughly about 2 weeks, and then throw a few in the refrigerator, let them cool down, and then taste to see if you've hit the right carbonation or whatever. I might suggest letting, after you're done bottling for 2 weeks, or that 2 week period, maybe throwing them in the fridge for another week or two, let them condition a little bit more, and then give them a try. But if you want to throw one in the fridge just to give it a try after a couple of weeks, feel free. Well, I hope you liked this video. If you did, please subscribe down below. Also, if you're looking for one of these kits, I'll leave a link down below. Any questions, comments, or concerns, please leave them in the comment section. Also, feel free to like this video. Let YouTube know we're putting out good content. Well, until next time, bottoms up.